is this brief, mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy?
Dreams didn't make us kings. Dragons did.
You are now in the south side of Westeros. Beware. No secrets are safe. Enter.
History does not remember blood.
Hello and welcome back to Southside Westeros. It is D. Paul, your master of whispers, and joining me is Lady Tiesha, and she has come through Flea Bottom just to visit the south side of Westeros. And today, people, you know what we're here for. But for those who are uninitiated, we are here to talk about House of the Dragon, Episode 1. Damn. Damn. Is the damn, James. For you young people, it's a Good Times reference.
Good Times reference.
Just dated myself. I apologize. Lady Tiesha, welcome. Welcome. How
I
are you?
appreciate you. I'm fantastic, man. I'm fantastic. I'm a bit disappointed in my friends, because they don't watch. They've never seen an episode. I don't understand why I'm still friends with them, but I guess outside of that, they're good people. But I don't this is my outlet now. This is where I go to be mind blown because this episode got me like that. It got me it's been a minute since I sat on the edge of my seat, and just kind of lean back, damn.
Right.
It had me like that.
It was amazing. We talked a little bit off camera before, as we do, and we discussed it. I had expressed to Lady Tiesha that I was both anticipating and not anticipating. So it was Schrodinger's episode, where if it never comes, it doesn't have the opportunity to suck.
Yeah.
So I was concerned that it may suck, mainly because this is the second iteration of Game of Thrones that was attempted since A Song of Ice and Fire. As you know, there was a whole pilot shot for $30 million and scrapped.
Yep.
Starring Emma Watson. And, we've heard a lot of things come out of Hollyweird about it, but for the most part, it had no storyline. And they said it was all action. And I'm bringing that up because I feel like this episode had both.
Yeah, a lot of it. And, honestly, when I heard that they, shot that first pilot, the pilot to the one they scrapped, and that they scrapped it, I don't know how everybody else felt, but I was happy they scrapped it because I didn't want to see, because one of my pet peeves about Game of Thrones when you got towards season 8 was seeing faces like Ed Sheeran, and all these celebrities jumping in to where they really had no purpose to the storyline, and I kind of felt like people just wanted to jump in and just be a part of something that was great, even though, it is possible to just sit back and love it.
Right.
So when I heard that, when I heard all of the celebrities they had in it, it kind of turned me off because I'd rather see something like that with faces that I'm familiar with, but not too familiar.
Sure.
You know what I mean? In the first scene, when she jumps off of her dragon, the gorgeous golden dragon, and the guy who's sitting on the horse, I've only seen him in one other thing, and that was a different series, and I loved his character, loved his talent in that. So I was happy to see faces that I was familiar with, but faces that weren't how I want to put it, be polite without being polite, overhyped.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy I didn't. So to me, it makes the characters more believable to give me a face that's known, but not overly used.
Right. I appreciate that because that's really what they did with Game of Thrones. Other than, you knew Sean Bean, of course.
Yeah.
From Lord of the Rings and Equilibrium, if you're a nerd like us,
Yeah.
the movie that got Christian
National
Bale Batman,
treasure.
National Treasure. So you've seen him, and King Baratheon was on Down to
Everywhere.
Earth from Chris Rock, right? He was the the butler who was playing that he had an English accent, but he did it again.
Mhm.
So they and Lena Headley, she was 300, of course, and you see,
Yeah.
but for the most part, the bulk of the people that you saw were all unnamed or new, or they had bit parts elsewhere. And so that brought even more, because you didn't envision that character as something else, right? Like even
Yeah.
when you saw Sean Bean, initially, of course, you thought about, wow, he turned on Frodo, if you're a Lord of the Rings fan. But after a while, he was Ned Stark
It was Ned Stark.
the
Yeah.
first episode, and he's still Ned Stark now. Like he can't ever be anything else other than Ned Stark to me and you. So
That's
sorry,
right.
Sean.
And so I was happy about that. I was very happy that these are faces that I've seen before, like, the uncle. I know I've only seen a couple episodes because I don't have the time to commit to watching all of Doctor Who yet. But,
Yeah.
you know, I've,
Which
I've,
Doctor
I've
Who?
known, I knew, right. But I knew that he was there. So I like the fact that they're known but not overly exposed.
Yeah.
It brings more to the story to me.
Yeah.
So that was great. So can we get back to the dragon?
We can get back to let's get back the first scene. So before we do that, though, I want to bring something up, and I'm just going to drop it real quick, which was that first of all, y'all played me like a fiddle, HBO. Let me tell you, you played me like a fiddle. I was sitting down in front. I couldn't even do our live. Like I was going to do a bunch of lives. I was going to do a live reaction. I was too excited. I had pizza. I had hot wings. I like the dry wing, just for any of you who want to give me a gift. I had a little libation. We'll call it ginger ale. And so I was set. I was set. Everyone was banished. No one could be around me. I don't want to answer any questions. And I love the countdown. I love, 7 minutes left, 6 minutes left. And then when they did the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
I cheated on my wife. Right there. It happened. But I don't know if you caught it, but they had that little thing where they told you this story is 172 years before the birth.
The death of
The birth
the
or
Mad
death?
King.
Yes,
The
and
death
the
of
birth.
the Mad King and the birth of Daenerys Targaryen.
So that I picked that out. I didn't have time to research it fully. And I don't want to spoil anything, but that is going to mean something at some point. I just had to point that out.
I figured that was like it's like everything that wasn't something but was something stuck with you. Like I figured that's going to mean something in the days, the episodes coming. It's definitely going to mean something because it was specified.
The Iron Targaryen logo, I noticed that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, just like Game of Thrones. If you folks, of course, are here, you love Game of Thrones. So you remember that each episode, the beginning sequence changed to reflect what was going on in Westeros at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think we're going to see that here.
The intro.
Yes.
Speaking of the intro, they added words to the song.
Yeah.
And they softened it. I told my daughter, because she didn't want to watch it. How she's mine, I don't know. But she didn't want to watch it. And I was giving her the rundown on the episode. And she was like, is it the same theme song? I said, yes. The thing is, I didn't realize how hard or harsh or aggressive the original theme song was until they softened it. Yeah. And added like the choral voices to it. And I was kind of sitting back like, oh, wait, they're singing. I got to learn the words.
It was a lullaby to get you comfortable. You thought you were going to have a very boring, kind of calm episode.
And pow.
It was not that. Spoiler alert.
It was not.
Now, we didn't say spoiler alert, right? For all of our nerds out there, it's spoiler alert. We are going to be going over actual scenes from episode 1 of House of the Dragon. So if you don't want it spoiled, pause. Don't leave. Just pause it. Open up your HBO Max window. Watch it. and then come back. Because
Yeah.
Lady Tiesha and I are watching it as we speak, so we're multitasking.
Yep. Yep.
But yes, the beginning, I loved that, the setup, and then the dragon. The framing of that scene was amazing to me. It was an introduction back to Westeros.
Yes.
It was what they don't understand about that is the first Game of Thrones. It subtly raised you up to the mythology. It was a normal show, which is also why it was difficult for a lot of people to catch on. I mean, dragons and people doing it will bring anybody in, right? Shout out to Penny. But for you to appreciate Game of Thrones, you had to get into the storyline. The action didn't really come right away. There was a little action, but it didn't come right away. And we didn't see dragons until later on. This is right here in your face, almost like a continuation from Dany's siege of King's Landing, in a way, right? And you have this female flying the dragon and it going over the city. And then, I don't know if you noticed, the colors were extremely vibrant. That jumped out at me. The dresses and the flowers and the buildings and the roofs.
Yep.
We're all there. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I did notice that, and I also noticed too that I don't know if anybody else notices, but King Landing wasn't all that. It wasn't as developed,
no,
as it was in Game of Thrones when we first seen it. But for me, the fact that these dragons are fully grown, well matured, to me it fed the need to see more. Because I had a need, like I like dragons. It's a very one of my favorite mythical creatures, and to watch Game of Thrones, I had a need to where I was like, oh, it'd just be great. It'd be far fetched, but great if someone else had came in with another dragon. You know, I love the fact that they had a presence in the show, and I had a need for more. So this is now feeding, and the different designs. Like the different style they're not all the same, because both of these so far are very different than the three that we've already seen.
The facial structure, the neck, even the body, even the legs. If you notice, they're a little more attached to the wings, which these dragons were supposed to be at this time, according to the book. This is the upper epsilon. Mm-hmm. You know, don't mind correcting me. I don't mind, guys. But this was the antithesis of the dragon. These were the top dogs. These are who Arya would reference when she would talk about them, right? So what we're seeing is the best of the best that dragons had to offer before the decline and when they would go down and eventually be the size of dogs. What I did notice, and I'm glad you brought it up, because with the lack of development, it made me look at a few things. I loved how they framed them going around the tower and all the birds coming up. I thought that was amazing. Very intentional.
Smart.
You're an artist, so you saw that it was beautiful. It was like a moving picture.
Yes.
But what I noticed initially and immediately, and of course you would imagine this is normal, the peoples were normal. The dragon was flying overhead. People, okay, just another day. So that's letting you know how prevalent dragons are in this society where Westeros is.
Did you notice? Did you pick up? First of all, they had dragon wranglers the same way they would have stable workers.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And he ushered this dragon into what would, the stable, but at the same time training a protege. Remember, he stuck his stick out and was like telling them how to move and when to move and what to do.
Right.
And so I noticed that, and I was like, they're just it's so regular right now. Like I love the details in this were spot on. That little detail to me, just to show it kind of, get itself prepared to be ushered into its place for the night.
Now, how evolved is that society? Now we at this time, even though it's rudimentary and a little archaic, it's still more evolved to be able to deal with this, which I guess is a picture of the human condition, right? It's an example of that we can get used to anything, basically, right? It just depends on if we're fully immersed in it. But that was an amazing part. That stuck out to me. That was one of the things I had in my notes, the Dragon Wrangler and the
Yeah.
seriousness. Like, you could imagine you would be serious, but that, like you said, that hierarchy, that passing of the torch, that giving
Yeah.
you these skills that are going to keep you alive, because they're probably not Targaryens, because this is probably a lowly position.
Yeah.
Like a deckhand or horse wrangler, like you said, or somebody, a stable boy.
A stable boy. Yeah.
These are lower positions, and you not being a Targaryen, the dragon is really, you're at the dragon's mercy and whim,
Yes.
because their contract is with the Targaryens and the Valerians, not with you. And so that whole scene, even though I had some issues with the CGI, and I'm sure you did too, especially at the last scene.
Yeah.
But let's hope they get that together. It was hokey in the last season too. So maybe they're building up to it. If these things are too magnificent, then it's going to take you away from everything else that we're going to discuss moving forward. But amazing. Yeah, I love to see it. It drew me in immediately. And it was meant to. And I thought it was very smart, because most people were very critical. A lot of the people I talked to today, they were mixed. Most people loved it, but some people, hey, I'm not sold yet. So
really,
yeah. Game of Thrones fans, as you know, Lady Tiesha, we're going to speak about this. Can be very, we don't know what they're thinking. So they're their own tribe. Yes, they are.
Temperamental people. Yes.
And this was Syrax, right? That first one we saw? Yeah.
Syrax.
So riding Syrax was Princess Rhaenyra. Immediately drew comparisons to Arya Stark.
Dany. Really?
Yep.
Huh.
Not Dany at all. I don't see Dany at all. I don't think we've seen what Dany is. That girl is confident.
Yes.
She knows herself. She knows what she knows. She seems to be very much more self-aware than Dany was throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about the interaction between her and her father as we go further on the podcast. But just initially, I can get a love of adventure. I just how comfortable, and of course we're looking at CGI, but how comfortable she was on that dragon, and even jumping off, how skittish everyone else was, and how unbothered she was.
Once again, I want to bring to the attention the comfort, because even with Dany, there was always this ride, like this pose, like it was always a poster moments with her on her dragon, because they had, they were there for a few seasons, but her riding it was still in its way something spectacular, put it like that. But not just to the viewers, but to everyone there. So every time she rode, it was always this, to me, it was always this poster moment.
Yeah.
Where you could snap the picture and it would be a great poster. And then when she, in her dismount, there was always this very slow, look at me, I'm coming off of a dragon kind of dismount type thing. And eventually that got old. You would at least think that she got used to riding, because I would imagine that even when she wasn't on screen, she still rode her dragons. Hopefully.
Right.
But in this, I've noticed that the comfort in being up there, and then like you said, just the way she jumped off and continued going, she thanked them, and her rubbing it and things like that. And then she moved on, like, okay, put my horse away.
Right. Now, to be fair, and fans know I'm very tough on Dany. We're going to discuss that body count at some point. But I would defend her in this case, because she didn't grow up with dragons. She met the dragons as an adult and had no frame of reference on how to take care of them, their mannerisms, how big they're, nothing. So I would say that I would guess that Princess Rhaenyra grew up from a very small child with them. So that comfort level is understandable, because they're everywhere. And it's not just one or three, and they're everywhere, and it's not this big thing that scares everyone who's used to them. I'm sure your enemies got a problem with it, but everyone around you is used to it, so you're comfortable. That's not a big thing, right? Like everyone that Danny saw with a dragon was like, "Oh my God, there's a dragon," and so she used that to validate herself, her own insecurities.
I can agree with that. I love the contrast in between the two. Like this, it's definitely day and night, and I can't agree. I think I read somewhere today while I was at work, BSing around. I think I read somewhere that Rhaenyra, is that how you say her name? So I got to get
Rhaenyra, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So she started riding when she was 6, I believe, around 6 or 8.
It was 6. I believe it was 6. They said when she started. So she was big, yeah. So she's from a very, very small age. She's been comfortable with those dragons. She's been.
But then again, it's like you said, that adventurous spirit. She's like you said, and I can see in that, because I said the same thing about Arya. Even from a young age, she knew she was no lady. I mean, technically yes, but in her heart, she was no lady. There were other things she wanted to do that wasn't considered ladylike, and I have a feeling that's the same way she was. So in the same sense, I can see that too. I can definitely see that.
That's a great point, because it could have been intentional. So when you draw the comparisons to, and I do implore everyone, watch the first episode of Game of Thrones, and then go back here and watch this, and where the action and a lot of the things that went on, a lot of the risque things we're going to discuss, may not have been as, apparent. There are comparisons. So you think about it. Aya was admonished for, wanting to do the bow and arrow and being with the boys and all these things. And when she walks in, her mother does the same thing to her. You smell like a dragon, where have you been? I know what you were doing. It's disappointing me that this is who you are. And we're going to get into why we think she's like that. A little bit, maybe that's who she is, but more so, she wants to be the son her father never had.
Yeah.
So you would imagine that's also a part of what drives her. And this was a theme throughout the show. The divide between her and her father, which created the next scene, where they reference this relationship with her uncle. The great actor Matt Smith, friend of us. He plays Daemon Targaryen, and they walk in with her bodyguard, which he's gonna play a crucial role, I think. He's more of a father to her than her own father, right?
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
That he does. I love that. That guy.
Yeah.
His talent does not end. So fingers crossed about that part.
And let's hope he doesn't turn on her. Let's hope this isn't a work for us. We already got to love. They're making bad guys very apparent, which lets me know there's probably going to be a few twists and turns.
Mm-hmm.
But when they walk into that throne room and she sees him, maybe I'm looking a little too far into this. It could have been just an uncle and aunt relationship. However, I feel there's more there.
Wait, now you're talking about when they walk in and they see him in the throne room?
When he's sitting on the throne, yeah.
Oh, there's no. Most definitely, there's some chemistry.
Okay, it's not just me. Okay, and the Targaryens don't have a problem, cousin loving.
Exactly.
And that's an uncle and a niece, so that would be sorry, Joe Dirt reference, but there could be, and maybe they're making it. It's obvious that there's a relationship between the two. However, I think they're making it like they have this love affair together, but I kind of feel that he was that surrogate dad for her, kind of thing, that cool uncle. And maybe that's why she has this affinity to him, because her father was so distant from her. And
and so different.
and
He
I,
was
wouldn't it make
the
sense?
second brother, right?
Who?
Damon.
Damon? Yes, he's the younger brother.
Yeah.
But it, it makes sense when you remember, and they go back to the very beginning and they explain this to you, how Viserys came to power is because Rhaenys, Corlys's wife, was passed over for being,
Yeah.
because they would not put a female. And he was a cousin, right? He wasn't even a son. So his claim is fragile in itself, or, whispered, well, he was never really a son, he was just a cousin.
Yeah.
And so for him, it probably was even more important to have that son, to have that heir, so it's uncontested and he doesn't have those whispers. Wow. I mean, it's just, as we're talking about it, things are popping in my head. And we're jumping ahead of it, but wow. But yeah, that scene between them, and I loved the Valerian. It sounds so much better than on Game of
So
Thrones, right?
it does. Sounds very musical. But side note, and I'm about to shine a very bright spotlight on my nerddom.
Let's see it.
Okay.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
I
This is
have
why Lady
been
Tiesha's here, people.
forever, ever since I found out that Klingon was a language that became a language. Have been trying my best. It's on my bucket list to learn a fantasy language. Okay. I've
Okay.
tried Elvish. I've tried Klingon. I've tried Vulcan.
Kovac.
I've tried Navi. And I'm going to be honest with you, my brain didn't click to them. So I waited patiently because I knew it was going to come along. And lo and behold, here comes High Valerian. So that is what I study. I study High Valerian. I love it.
Really?
I'm loving it. It's a great language to learn.
Okay.
I like the way it rolls off the tongue.
Okay. We're going to speak Pig
Don't ask me
Valerian.
to say anything yet.
It's okay.
Don't ask me because
We're going to speak Pig Valerian, people. We're going to get a different type of Valerian down here on the south side of Westeros that only our people understand, not even Flea Bottom be able to communicate with us. That's interesting. I want to learn Dothraki.
Oh yeah.
I would love to learn the language of the Dothrak, and very, very aggressive, very Klingon-like to me. So I would.
So. Yeah, I could see that. But but you're right. It most definitely sounded very musical. And once
Almost
again,
elvish.
it's like and it's like the dragons. It's another thing that they're very comfortable with doing.
Yeah.
They're closer to the times when that's all they spoke. So they're very comfortable with speaking it. And I like that. And I feel like in a way, he may be the only one that she can speak that language with, because I kind of feel like her father may not speak it anymore.
Or just may not talk to her.
Yeah.
Which we saw they did, and we saw it throughout the rest of the episode. It brought their relationship full circle in front of us, which was another amazing thing about the episode. And when we get to that part, it'll blow everybody's mind. But yeah, that when they start talking, their back and forth did seem like it was sexual or at least sensual, but I didn't feel that. I just think Valerian sounded so, and that was beautifully put, musical, that it made it a little more intimate than maybe it was, more so as a homecoming. Because when you realize he's married to, he's in charge of the Vale, so he's very far away. So she probably hasn't seen him in quite some time. So there's also that, hey, uncle, I haven't seen you, or maybe he was knocking it down. But when we get to the tournament, maybe there's some things that show us the opposite, right?
Well, the thing is, I feel like you're 100% right. In my opinion, what I thought I saw was he's a seasoned man. He's that, like you said, he's the fun uncle that goes on the adventure she wished she could be on.
Yeah.
He comes back, he brings a gift, he tells her about all his travels.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also feel like he does have this chemistry and these feelings for her. And this affection. There's an affection. I'll say affection. Because I don't know quite yet. I'm speculating, but I'm leaning more towards he may have recognized his affection for her
Yeah.
And I think we are getting a glimpse of when she is finally maybe having the first little in the back of your mind thought of, huh,
I get
really?
I give
That's
him a little
different.
something. I give you a little something, Uncle. You over
He could
there,
get it. That first he could get it though.
he can get it. Yeah, long hair don't care. I got it. And he's seeing her as a woman. He probably saw her as a kid, and now he's seeing her grow up in her woman body. She started coming to her own. She started to be beautiful. So yeah, there's definitely a
Well,
lot going on. We want
on the
to
other side of
keep an
that
eye on it.
coin, no, exactly. And then on the other side of that coin, he may be seeing her for a woman for the first time, but she may be seeing him through woman eyes for the first time.
True. Very true.
So I don't
Very true.
know. Uh-huh. That's something like you said. I'm
Excuse me.
definitely going to keep my eye on that.
We need to.
And I do want to follow. Like I want to see what happens with his name. I'm looking at it now. He was Sir Harold.
We're talking
Her
about
guard. Yeah,
her
Sir
gu-
Harold. Let me click on
Harold
this.
Westerling.
Yes, Graham McTavish.
Yes, Harold
Yes.
Westerling.
So
He's
it's going to
really
be
good.
very interesting to see what's going on with his character, especially since I have no, like, I'm going in completely blind with this. So it's going to be very interesting to see what his character does.
I'm drawing a lot of comparisons to characters from Game of Thrones. And I'm trying not to do that,
Not to do that.
but
Me too.
he's very similar to the character of Sir Barristan Selmy, a character I hold in very high regard. He's a long-serving member of the King's Guard. He was
Mhm.
once a very powerful knight with a very successful military background. He was named to the King's Guard during Jaehaerys I's reign. And when King Viserys took over, he assigned him to Rhaenyra as a sworn
Uh-huh.
shield. So you take the greatest fighter you have and you assign him to your daughter. So even though you were disappointed that she is a female, you still love and care for her enough to put one of the best fighters as basically her assistant in
Right.
the end. But he has such a keen eye that he is going to serve her well, especially with where she ends up being at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I want to jump ahead and then we can come back. Since we're talking about this character, I really feel like that was thrown at her and she wasn't in any position to turn it down.
I mean, yeah, if you've seen the episode, we don't have to play around. We can talk about whatever we want. So as you've known, you're here because you saw the episode and she was named the heir to the throne. And she is the first ever female heir to the throne. And that made her an instant target from several people. It's not just her. And it's not just Daemon Targaryen. We have Rhaenys Targaryen. For Rhaenys Valerian, if she, hasn't kept her maiden name. She was passed over many years ago. So much so that her husband brought her name up in speaking about heirs. Hightower, who's given me, oh my God, that's Tywin Lannister vibes all day long times 10. My man is disrespectful. Like he's feeling himself, isn't he? Isn't he?
There's Otto, right?
Otto Hightower, yes indeed.
Creepy.
He's creepy, and let's get into that because we saw. I mean, they didn't even lube you up. They just like right into that council
Threw
meeting.
him in.
But funny enough, they did a masterful job of bringing everything to fruition. And you saw the disrespect or the contempt that Otto had for basically everyone on the High Council who didn't agree with him, but especially for the king and particularly for Corlys Valerian. They were very flippant in the disrespect towards him. And you and I had a conversation off camera about this, where we hope that this character wasn't just made black, just to be black.
Just to be black.
I'm a little concerned I got to be honest with you. That's one of my biggest concerns right now, that this character is just here to be here, and they're not going to explore any depth of that character. Now, let's hope it, we'll see something in the future. And who his wife is, it's obvious that there's going to be some interaction. He's the master of ships. He's got a very high position. But every time he spoke, it was almost like, shut up. Yeah. We heard what you got to say. And the problem isn't what they did, it was how he took it.
Yeah.
And how he took it means that this is how they speak to him or disregard him normally.
And I kind of got the feel like I agree. I hope he's not a token, but I kind of got the feel that I hope they're not trying to make the character seem like he's only there because of his wife.
That I thought that, and I'm hoping not. And the way I hope it's going is that there was always this kind of uneasy thing between the Targaryens and the Valerians. And they even said the Valerians were supposed to be able to be dragon riders as well. And at one point, it was a toss-up with who would really survive, the Targaryens or the Valerians. So maybe it's that thing.
And I want to say, and this was it was a while back, but I want to say that I did read somewhere that back in old Valyria, the Targaryens were a small household compared to the other households.
Yes.
And their migration to Westeros and being the only people there that possess dragons is what made them the high family that they were.
Right.
And the reason why they chose to stay, because, we were small here, but there's no one else here like us, and no one else can beat us. So I think I read something about that, and that family, the Valerian family, was in higher, as far as a highborn status, higher than the Targaryens.
Right. So you may be seeing, where they're looking at him, where they're on their rise and he's on his downfall. So they're like, yeah, finally, we're on your level. So we don't have to listen to you.
That transfer of power.
Well, what was surprising was, even though his wife was passed over for the position, right?
Uh-huh.
His first instinct was to back Daemon as the heir. So which is the right thing at the time. And that, even though the rest of the council was speaking against him, he did back Daemon. Now, I don't know if something's going to come out of this later on. However, that is interesting, that he didn't jump on their side. And that may be a result of how they treat him, or maybe he's smarter than we think. Because after they shot down Daemon, he brought up his wife, and they grazed over that too. No one wanted to even hear about that. Which I think would have been actually a smarter move, but I understand again why Viserys, because his claim is suspect. He doesn't want to give it up. His whole family line would pretty much be forgotten, other than a footnote, right?
Yeah. Now, there's one thing that's been bugging me since I've seen it.
Okay.
And it's not bugging me in a bad way. It's just bugging me because I can't pinpoint it, but I have a feeling. When, and again, I'm going to jump ahead because my mind is all over the place with this. But when Daemon is sent away,
right,
he was very calm. Like his response to that was very calm, and I kind of it brings me back to Otto and the way he revealed the speech that Daemon gave in that tavern or wherever he was at, the place he was in. If you hear music, it's because my neighbors downstairs are.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Are you typing right now?
Actually, I'm playing with clay.
Okay, because I can hear it.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm sorry. I'm conditioning clay.
It's okay. It's okay. We don't mind. We sharing. See, we multitask here, people, and it's okay.
Yes, I've been working on a mermaid.
What I'm doing. A mermaid.
Yeah.
Interesting. On a side note, I want you to look up have you ever heard the story of the mermaids in Africa?
Yes.
You have. So Tony Woods, it's let's see. I know we're taking you off, guys, but we like to give you the actual the actual. Yeah, so it was Tony Woods, who's a comedian, actually was on the Joe Rogan show, and he brought up the fact that in this particular area in Africa, there are mermaids.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in a pool with a French person, and they said they both saw, it was in Kenya, I believe, and they said they both saw mermaids. And the mermaid told them to get out the water, and they got out, exit stage right. So we actually looked that up. There are real mermaids, apparently.
Yeah. I've believed that for a while now.
You really do?
I have.
I don't think a mermaid is possible. I don't. And I'm a person, I want to believe in every mythical thing, even the stuff that contradicts the other stuff. But I don't feel a mermaid is possible scientifically. I don't. I think if there is a mermaid, it's going to look like a seal, right? Like a sea lion or something, because it would need to be aerodynamic. It would need a lot of blubber to survive. It's cold in the water. It would need all those things. Even though Mermaid: A Body Found was an excellent little mockumentary, right? I enjoyed it. I just don't believe that those things can survive, and if they do, like look up the aquatic ape theory. That's also fun to look up too. You know that some apes developed on land, some apes developed in water. That's how supposedly mermaids might have survived. So, just a side note, folks. Sorry, we didn't mean to get off the subject.
I really didn't.
And honestly, that'll be good because it's probably going to be this is probably going to be the end of part 1, maybe. So, we'll see. We might release the whole thing. It depends on how long we go tonight. Tiesha and I are both night owls, and we drink a lot of Red Bull, so we sleep very little. And I sleep upside down because I don't cut my toenails, people. But there you go. Now we are back for part 2. Part two. Or this may be all one part, and I'm screaming part 2 for no reason, but we'll see. But we are talking about House of the Dragon, season 1, episode 1. Lady Tiesha, we left off talking about mermaids. However, we were talking about how Corlys was being mocked, and how Daemon was calm. And you bring a very good point. Daemon, throughout the whole episode, was presented as calculating.
Deep in thought. And I noticed that every time a scene switched and he's in that scene, it always comes to him, and he just, whatever's going on around him, he is not present.
He's matriculating. He's conniving.
Not present.
He's thinking. He knows what's going on. He told his brother when his brother got mad at him for that speech where he referenced and so speech, of course, is after the death of King Viserys' son, which we will talk about next, because that was a heavy part of the episode. But Daemon, he was always calculating, and it seemed that he wasn't present, but he was at the same time. I think he was taking notes on who would be, who are the enemies and who are his allies.
Yes.
And Corlys was given a shout out by him for being an ally, and of course his King's Guard, as they referenced, 2,000 or more strong, that are totally loyal to him. And as soon as he came back in town, they ran roughshod. This is where we start talking about some of the imagery they used. This was extremely graphic, and to say extremely graphic is an understatement. This scene where they start, he says, "Look, we got to get back. King's Landing is lawless," and we don't know. We don't have any reference. We said that. We referenced how medieval it looked, but there was never an air of lawlessness that was presented to us. So we have to take his word for it, right?
Yeah.
But,
and I don't know, like I said before, that it didn't seem as developed, but it also to me didn't seem, and it could be just the times of day, but it didn't seem as populated as it was.
Well,
that could just be me.
It's also less populated since Daemon Targaryen rolled into town, right?
Swear.
they went hard. I don't know if anybody was actually a criminal, honestly, or he just was beating down people. They were cutting off hands, cutting off heads. I mean, very graphic, so much so when they referenced this in the show that they had to get a cart to scoot away all the body parts. So they went pretty hard. Pretty hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And I imagine they took those body parts to feed the dragons.
You think so? I hope not.
Fingers crossed.
Well,
I mean, if you're gonna
dragons don't like dead things though. They like to kill it themselves, don't they? They like to burn it and then eat it, right? They don't really like dead stuff, right? Technically, when they were young, they were fed meat, but I would imagine they would like to kill their own. So I'm sure they're fed cattle, or I mean, we're gonna find out, hopefully, but
we'll find. I hope we find out. But I wondered, like, where they're taking this stuff. Where they're taking these body parts to.
Well, yeah.
And I just automatically assumed they were, using it to feed the dragons. That's how they kept population down in King's Landing.
Or the dogs, or the bees, or the dogs with bees in their mouth, and when they bark, they shoot bees at you. It could be any one of those those things. But yeah, that was a little sick. And surprisingly, King Viserys didn't really have a problem with it.
No, he didn't.
The council,
no, he did not.
Mainly Otto Hightower, who is being painted as the villainous person. And at the end, when Princess Rhaenyra was named the successor, and she was crowned, and they had a whole ceremony, he had a smirk on his face. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did.
He had a smirk, so that was definitely a smart move, and he's a calculated dude. I mean, as soon as because we're going to talk about what he did after, but the next scene that we're going to talk about is Rhaenyra's mother. She was pregnant, and they had a tournament. So this is where it got real nasty, and you want to talk about this.
Yeah, I do. I want to ask a question though, because this is something that I was confused on.
Sure.
Was that her mother or her stepmother? Because when
was that her stepmother?
When it was announced that he would take the throne after when the lady was skipped over. I haven't gotten the names down yet. I got them all written down, but I haven't gotten the names down yet. But when she was Emma, no, not Emma, but you know what I'm talking about. When she was skipped over, and he was named as the successor. The lady he was standing next to, which I'm assuming was his wife, was pregnant. So I saw that, and then I wondered, was that his second wife that gave birth in the show? That wonderful scene.
I will let you know in a second, because I think, and he did reference that when they were talking about that he was talking about his first wife dying, or getting killed, dying. I'm sorry, I should know this, and that's a shame. I'm going to the family. Well, I'm going to the family tree now. So we had Viserys and Emma. She's deceased, and I think that's the only one. These no, is it Ray Royce? Yeah, so she might be. So she might. I believe she is Queen. Let me see. Whose daughter is she? Emma. Yeah, she's
a House Aaron.
She did come from Aaron, but is she? Folks, we will let you know. Is she? This is a shame. Yeah, no, no, that's not Aaron. No, she's her mother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Because I was reading up on it, and that's what it threw me off. That they were saying, and I don't know if I was reading what was actually in the book and what was compared to, and they were comparing it to what was in the series, the episode. So it threw me off a little bit. Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're fine.
I just needed to know.
No, it's okay, and we like this. You know we're transparent here at Southside Westeros, and we
Mhm.
we meaning myself and Lady Tiesha and all of the other folks who will bless you with some commentary this season chose not to look these things up.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I want to
and I
learn it as it
reference it.
happens.
Yes, and I referenced that so we did not look these things up. I wanted to be pleasantly surprised. I didn't want to be in the back rooms of Reddit and all these chat rooms and figure these things out. Now, after the season or after the episodes, I look up a few things, but
That's
we're being
mhm,
pleasantly surprised. So we're
mhm.
discussing it and we're experiencing it with you. So please don't come for us talking about we don't know what we're talking about and all that. No, we know a lot, and we can get into a lot of debates with you. But we just felt the need to explore this as a fan and
Yeah,
appreciate and enjoy it as a fan
as it
before
develops.
yes, before know-it-alls destroy it. Now, her being an Aaron was amazing, and it shows you they referenced every house, House Stark, House Baratheon. Which, if you go back to
Yes.
the House of Baratheon podcast, I told you that he is related to the Targaryens, and now this confirms it that they are related to the
Yeah.
Targaryens. The Baratheons are direct relations, and you saw the Baratheon was Broderick Baratheon at this event we're talking about. So this just jousting event, which was to celebrate the birth of his heir, went on, and
Of the
we
son to be.
son to
Yes.
be. And while we've seen jousting before, and there's been some horrific injuries, and in Game of Thrones land, we saw the Hound and the Mountain and what the Mountain did. This event, this right here, this is called death. Death. This right here, this here is death. This was so bloody and gory.
Uh-huh.
My God, I think Michael Myers threw
Mhm.
up. Okay.
It was glorious.
Yeah.
It was glorious.
And I
The
didn't think it was going to
speed
get
of
that
it.
way. It just came out of
No.
nowhere. My man got mad,
Yes.
came over with the with the axe, and boom,
Right in the face.
bang.
Yes.
And then it went, and people loved it. But you did see where the crowd loved it, but individuals like, oh,
Yeah, like, oh, this is nasty. I can't look away. Yes. Yeah, and it's not that it took a turn. It's just that to me, it was a testament of what's to come. Because if this is what they're putting in the first episode, it was the best. It was the best tournament I've seen, hands down. The best and the saddest at the same time.
yeah,
You know, but the risk that they took in, as far as the creators of the show, the risk they took in showing the things that they show in without panning the camera away and giving you the opportunity to use your imagination,
yeah,
because those are good moments, because there's a lot of us out there who has vivid imaginations, but to see
mm-mm.
to see it to me, I was like, oh, thank you though,
But
but
ill,
thank you,
but
but
ill,
ill.
and there
Mhm,
was more ill moments, and and
mhm.
and of course it goes into the next scene. But before we go there, it was interesting because I drew comparisons between Damon and Jamie initially,
Yeah,
Jamie Lannister. Kind of the same thing, Prince, kind of trained, and you think he could beat everybody. He doesn't seem to be the fighter Jamie was, but we haven't seen him really in combat. Really, I mean, the joust was fun, but him being the prince, he wasn't going to get manhandled or mangled or maligned like the other people were.
right.
Even when he was bested by the Dornishmen, who
Yes,
we're going to see something from there. Remember, Dorne and Targaryens have a very long and storied history.
they
Um,
do.
he
They do.
knew
I wonder though.
what.
They I don't know. I guess sometimes I watch things from a writer's point of view, and I can almost sometimes it's not too predictable, but I can see the different avenues that these two characters like they're either going to love each other, or they're going to hate each other. And I kind of see a respect budding between the two of them. That's what I'm going to go with. I want to go that I see maybe a budding respect that kind of brings together these two unlikely allies.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think he's going to start a war. I think because now, with her being the heir, they have to marry her off now.
Yep.
So she's going to get more than she bargained for. Like she's going to miss. She missed what she never had, which is the total love and devotion of her father. And she didn't realize what she did have, which was basically a carefree life with no duties or responsibilities. You got to do whatever you wanted to do. Yeah, be more ladylike. But you didn't really, that wasn't something you had to work at every day. It's just, you're kind of annoying as being a boy. But now you have responsibility. Now, like he told her, hey, this is not a joke. And he gave her that long speech about everything that she's going to be putting up with as the heir, everything she has to watch, everything she has to worry about now. She's got to look over her back, look over her shoulders. Everyone's going to be coming at you. And you're going to have to get married. Now, what's interesting, again, is this tournament, which ended up being just for his supposed heir, will actually end up being for the heir, because whoever survived are going to be in line to see who's going to marry Rhaenyra.
Yep.
And she likes that Dornishman.
She was a bit taken back by him. She was like, well, look at this guy. Yeah.
Yes,
she was a bit taken back by him. And can we talk about how David was a horse?
Yes.
Like, I feel like I slid down that pole with him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like the two of us was like,
wonderful scene, because and it added a humanity to him.
Yeah.
He was unbeatable up until that point. You saw him perform in the streets with the gold cloaks, and you just saw how he walked into a room. He controls it. He's the man. And even before that, and you saw that he was willing to do anything to win, even cheat.
Yes.
So to have him even cheating and even being the prince where no one's going to touch you because you're the prince, it was good to see him humanized. Which is going to make for a better story later on. If he's just an unbeatable character, it would just be ridiculous.
Exactly. And I'm very glad they didn't wait and stretch that persona of him out. I'm very glad they started it and kind of killed it all in this one episode, because that does make a character, to me, unlikable. Because they develop this arrogance about them, and then when they finally are beat, they develop this depression because this crybaby persona, and I don't like that. But I will say this: what humanized him for me is at the end of the fight when he told him, yield. You're beaten, just yield. And he yielded, and he held his hand out to help him up. He smacks it away. That did it for me. Like, don't touch me. I got it. I can get up. Leave me alone. That humanized. That's where I thought, okay, this is a regular guy. His pride is hurt, but he's not. He's all right. He's okay.
Later on, he took that from you later on, though, didn't he? He went back to being something special when he jumped on that dragon. But when he's leaving.
Yes.
So, of course, during the ceremony, this is when the queen goes into labor. And this is graphic, people. Graphic to the point where I wanted to fast forward. And,
did you?
Yeah. I'm just for a second. It was that screaming and the agony that she was in.
Yeah.
The Queen Aemma was it was meant to resonate with you, especially with what would have ultimately happened next. But wow, it was rough. And when we look at this, we have to remember that this is medieval. So there was only one way to have a baby. You did or you didn't. There wasn't a lot of other things. So initially the baby was breached. would you like to explain to people what a breech birth is?
Basically, in a nutshell, it's when the feet come first.
Yeah. So
And there's no way they didn't have the techniques that we have nowadays to turn that baby around, and they didn't even have the techniques. Because I mean, I kind of wondered, being I've done it 3 times, but I've kind of wondered the the uncomfort she already felt in the days leading up to her birth. Well, and it didn't help any that she referred to her birth as this miserable time,
yeah.
or just her being pregnant as this miserable time. I hope it's a boy because I don't want to do this again type.
She's also an advanced age too. I would imagine, where they don't really reference how old she is. I'd imagine she's probably in her late 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
And that's very high risk for that time
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
world and where they
Yeah.
would be.
So her uncomfort.
And she had several miscarriages. Let's
Mhm.
not forget that, several miscarriages, which probably led to the defection in her womb, which caused
Yeah.
this breech baby.
Yeah.
So
and
that's part of it.
and that's definitely where her uncomfort came from, but it is ultimately the feet coming out first.
Yeah. So that's what happened. The baby was breached, and the maester was unable to solve the issue. He didn't have the knowledge or as Lady Tiesha said, the technology to be able to save the baby. So he goes to the king, and he gives the king 2 choices. He says, you could lose both, or we could try to save the baby.
Yeah.
Now, it's amazing. You found issue with this, correct?
hmm
Go ahead, tell the
hmm
people.
I found issue with the fact. Well, I'm not going to say I found issue with it because I'm very familiar with the way things work in these times.
Okay.
I'm
I
very
like how you
familiar
put
with
that.
it.
I like how she put
Yeah.
that, the way things work. I like how.
So I understand the reasoning in turning away from this lady in agony on her bed, in her birthing bed, and turning around to speak to her husband. Never mind their kings and queens, but her husband, and telling the husband the procedure and what he's going to have to do quietly in a hushed tone, and then commence to carrying this procedure out with this lady who's laying there in her mind just in pain and what get it out. What am I going to what just get it out? And then all of a sudden they're pinning her down.
Yanking her
And
forward, and she's like, "What's going
yeah,
on?" And no
and
one's
he
telling her
can't
anything.
tell her because he doesn't
Yeah,
know how. Like, how do you talk about this to a woman because they didn't do this in those times?
yeah,
And the women that are there aren't in any position to tell her what's going on, because that means they would have to go above the heads of the men
man,
that were in the room. So everyone's quiet, she's confused, and then boom, they're slicing her.
yeah,
At one point I wanted to look away because I don't like gory things,
yeah,
but I could not look away because I felt like, as a woman, you don't look away. Like, this is those things where men have their things where they say, you a man, you don't look away, you a man.
mhm.
Okay, where we women have these things where we say you don't look away.
Yeah. Well, men don't have to be men in the face of women stuff, man. So I'm with you. You don't have to be a man. You can go out the room. Bring back the days when I was out in the hallway with a cigar and some loafers. Why I gotta be in the room, I have no idea. It doesn't serve any purposes. All the woman does is curse me out and tell me don't ever touch her again. So, and now she sees this, I'm definitely never gonna touch her again. But yeah, that was a rough pill to swallow, and it was a reminder of where women stood in
Yeah,
that time, which
yeah,
was meant to set up the triumph later of a woman being elevated for the first time in history as the
yes,
actual heir to the throne. So you went from her mother basically, and the thing is, I don't look at it like, oh, this was a woman who didn't have a choice. She didn't have a choice. And unfortunately, in pain, she couldn't be trusted to make that decision. So
yes,
let's be honest, in what went on in that scene, because we can look at that and get very feminist and say, wow, she didn't have a choice. They were so all these men, which is true, and I'm not taking that away. But what I will say is, in that moment, with the position, they're going to say, we're going to save the baby, or both of you are going to die.
yeah,
What am I going to say at that point? Most mothers would, that motherly instinct would say, take the baby. But will they? Because you're going to die. You know, you have to deal with your own mortality in minutes, in seconds. I have to come to grips with the fact that I'm out of here. So, and then
Yeah.
what am I going to be so stressed that the baby feels the stress too? So
Yes.
I'm not saying there would be an altruistic. I'm just, that's a silver lining on what happened. I can just only assume in that moment, I can't tell you this. I can't do anything. We got to work quick. All I can do is try to comfort you, hold your hand, and tell you I love you while we slice you in half. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
like
Oh,
these are our last moments, and I'm
yeah.
going to hold your hand and look you in your face while they have two sets of hands inside of your belly, right?
Yeah. And up in there too. And I don't understand why couldn't they that's very graphic, isn't it? It's because could well, again, we discussed it. They didn't have
They
the
were in there.
technology or the tools. Like baby, they could have gone in there they got that big old spatula, and then they have the big tongs that you put around the baby head, and they just pull the baby out, and then you know,
I mean, I can imagine in those days they didn't even know what they were slicing.
yeah. And then there wasn't a lot of hygiene, so who knows what the
That too.
the
That
atmosphere.
too.
They didn't have any Glade or Febreze, so it was a little rough. There was no AC either, so there's not a lot of
That too.
windows, and yeah. But
That
yeah,
too. Yeah.
that was a rough
I
scene.
appreciated that scene. I
It
did.
was
I
a human scene.
appreciated. Yes, I appreciated that they did not, try to cover up how graphic, especially in those days. Because I mean,
Absolutely.
even in these days, things can go right, and it'll still, your birth can still be graphic. So I appreciated that they didn't, turn that into a skit.
Now, how great was it? And I'm not saying great. I'm talking about great for the storyline.
Hmm.
Immediately, he's holding the baby. They frame that scene where he's holding the baby, and then the baby starts to cough.
Yep.
And you knew it. You knew it. You didn't have to
Yep.
be told where the next scene was going. And the loss, he did it was a look on his face where it was like, I lost everything in this moment.
Everything. Yep.
Every decision I've made up until this point has been wrong. The gods are against me. And now this heir, this thing that I've wanted so much,
Yeah.
is now gone.
It's here and gone in a matter of moments.
Yeah.
7 hells. Yeah. And you're right. It was, in the lack of better words, it was great because it was so subtle. It was almost so subtle for me. I had to kind of go back a little bit. Like, is that baby coughing? And when I caught it, I was like, oh man, don't do that to him. Don't do that to him.
And then they
it
stretched it
happened. I
out.
was like,
But they stretched it out on you because you went to the
did.
next scene. You're out in the field. You have the dragon on the hill. You have the funeral pyre, and you have what is assumed to be the queen's body there. And you're just seeing the queen's
Yes.
body, and everyone's around, everyone's sad. And then 2 seconds later, boom, you see the baby on the floor. Not on
That
the
little
floor, but
baby wrapped up
next
on
to
the
it.
pyre.
Yeah.
That little baby wrapped up.
That's
You
it.
know, and in watching that, I compared that to, we know, even to this day, we know, you can die at any age. We know this, but in our day, when you
Yeah.
see them little tiny caskets, it really, really
It does
puts
something to
things
you.
into perspective.
And as a
It
parent,
does.
and a mother and a father,
Yes.
or as someone who's taken care of a small defenseless child, and if you have children, or you have you have little ones that you hold dear like that, you will understand that you are willing to do anything and lay down your life at any time for their survival. And that's when they're young. When they're older, you don't care. They turn mean. But when you're younger, you would do that, and to feel that every parent felt that loss, and
Yeah.
something just stuck me right in my craw, and it was meant to. And after, before Rhaenyra was the one that had to give the order, Dracarys, for her mother and little brother's body to be burned, but her uncle again, Damon, this evil Damon that everyone talks to evil, was
Very
the one that
soft.
very soft and comforting and subtle, and that's where I got the uncle vibe. Now it could be an R. Kelly vibe, where he's nice right before he takes a video, but I didn't get that there. I felt he understood where she was, and he understood the position of royalty. I understand you're sad,
Yes.
but you can't let them see you sweat.
Better.
You
You
got
got
to
a
get out here.
responsibility
You
right
got
now.
to do what you got to do. And
Yeah.
when she said, I hope that maybe my father found some happiness for a couple minutes getting that son he ever wanted, that lets you know how she felt her entire life.
Yes.
That it
He wanted
wasn't,
this
he was a
his whole life,
disappointment.
her whole life.
He was disappointed, and he was distant. And because of his disappointment in getting a daughter first, he wouldn't
Mhm.
stay off of the mother. And she had several miscarriages. Her body was a wreck, and then she ultimately dies. So you can imagine the mother's resentful of her too. And you saw how she talked to her, very
Yeah.
condescending, and she talked down, just like a Catherine Stark, Caitlin Stark. But she spoke, when she spoke to her, there was a disdain for her very own daughter. And it was subtle again, but there was, why couldn't you be a boy? Then maybe he'll leave me alone, and I wouldn't be a retiree still sitting up in here pregnant with something running around inside of me. So
Yeah.
it summed up everything in her existence up until that point. And
Right.
then it was like with Dracarys, it was almost a release of that, release of the pain. I survived. I outlived it. I'm sad my mother's gone, because a
You got that?
mother. Yeah. After they burned, when she finally said Dracarys, it was like, I gotta let you go. But I feel, this is just me,
Mhm.
and because of course you're going to be sad, because the mother figure in Game of Thrones, this is one of George's themes. Besides that, happiness is fleeting, so you're never going to see a consistent happiness in any character. But the main theme is that mother figure,
Yeah.
that softness, that you could only get that from her, and it's never there constantly. It's always taken away from you before you're ready. You're
Mhm.
pushed out the crib before you're ready. You're suckled from the teat before you're ready, before you
Mhm.
want to be. So enjoy it while you can, because it's going to be gone before you know it. And
Yeah.
and it was almost, the release didn't come right with Dracarys. The release came when she was validated, when they put that cloak around her, they put the hat on her, and she was named Heir. That's when the
Yeah.
release was. You saw that it was almost like a right before, oh my God, what did I just do?
Mhm.
There's-
See, I kind of got the moment she said Dracarys, I feel like it was I'm going to do this because I have to, but I don't really want to, because I kind of feel like the words got stuck.
Oh, sure.
They got stuck, and I feel like this was. I feel like in a way this was her moment, the moment that she knew she had to grow up. Her parents were on her about that. But I feel like this was the moment where she decided it's time. Like, I
Wow.
have no choice but to grow up now.
That's a
The
metaphor too.
queen, yeah, the queen is gone. I have no choice. That's my position now. She's not queen, but it's her position to be, in some ways the matriarch of the family now.
Right.
And I kind of felt like that sigh that she gave was a reluctant sigh in my adventure days are done. If I was gonna be an adventurer, it's done. The days of flying on the back of my dragon and eating cake are done. I now have this responsibility that I'm not ready for.
Right.
That and it happens to the oldest girl, even to
Yeah.
this day. We take on the responsibility, to a certain extent after our mothers. We're the help, and now her mother's gone.
Right.
So this is now her position, and I feel like she wanted it, just not yet, and I don't think she wanted it that bad. It was her duty, and she's going to honor her duty. But at the same time, as long as Damon was the heir,
Yeah.
there was a chance that that dream of being able to just live life the way she wanted to, and see the world on the back of a dragon. I feel like as long as he was the heir, that dream was in her grasp. And the moment she found out that she was to be her mother died and she was to be the heir, I feel like that side was a reluctant side, and she's now pushed into this position where I mean, like it's do this or dishonor your family.
So the girl must die so the woman can live.
Exactly.
And she always wanted the benefits of being the heir without the responsibility.
Without the responsibility.
And she could do it, though. She could do it behind her back. And I think they wanted to sell that to you, too, just like when she was out with Allison Hightower. When they were trying to make her study, and she was, oh, you're not studying, you don't care. And then she rattled off everything that was in the book to her. She's like, no, I got this. I can do this behind my back. I don't feel like doing it now. Your proverbial, prodigy that can do it and is just bored at it. You don't want to do anything else.
Yeah, like right now is not the time. And I feel like she was preoccupied with the fact that the birth is on its way. Could happen any day now. And if it's a boy, it pushes me 3 people back, from having these responsibilities.
If she wanted it. I think she felt she would be, once that boy comes, she was probably going to be sold off to the highest bidder at that point as a political pawn. So I feel that's what I felt. I felt that's what she was fearing as well. Mm-hmm. Having to actually grow up, like you said, but also the things that come with that for a female in that society. As I like to reference Cersei Lannister, little girls are hurt all over the world. And so that's very interesting. I didn't think about that, honestly. Yeah. And we should explore that in the future. And I think we will. And that's something you guys should really follow, where she is. And of course, a character as Rhaenyra is going to be very deep and very multifaceted. And where George spent a lot of time developing this particular character. You'll see a consistency in his characters. There's always those that you got the mother figure, and you have the fighter, and then you have this young, advanced individual that's born too early, born before their time, and they look at things differently and they see the world differently. They don't prescribe to any of the norms, and they want to shape the world in their image. And that's it's that Arya fire, where I want to do what I want to do with this world. I don't want to live in the little box that you're putting me in. And with her getting this, she's being put into a box. And I don't think she understood that. Until Viserys gave her that.
I think she was accepting that. Well, I think maybe in the beginning I think she was afraid. She knew that if this wasn't a boy, then, of course, with Daemon being the heir, if it was a boy, that would make the son the heir, Daemon second in running if anything happens to the kid. And, she would be left alone. I think that she would have I honestly think that if this was a boy being born, she would have jumped on the back of that dragon. Probably never came back that often. Just to feed her needs of adventure, like Arya said, what's Westeros? But I think when she accepted that, like you said, the girl must die so the woman can live, and the responsibilities that this woman has, I don't think they were responsibilities that she wanted, because she's in a man's world.
Yeah. And you always want what you can't have. And this is what I feel the story may be. You're getting all these things you didn't want. And again, we saw it with Jon, we saw it with Tyrion, we saw it with Sansa, especially. Yeah. What you wanted was hollow. And the things that you received on the road to try to get what you wanted, what you thought you wanted. So this may be what she always thought she wanted. She wanted to be her father's favorite, but now as her father's favorite, you got a responsibility.
A deep responsibility, yes.
And let's not forget, now after this, of course, this is when Daemon had the orgy of all orgies. I had to hit the info button on my remote to make sure I didn't go over to Spartacus. The first thing you see is a prostitute on top of one of his soldiers. And he clearly bought out a brothel, when he bought that brothel out and had everyone in there. And this is where he makes the infamous speech we were referencing, where he said, Heir for a day.
Yes, but did he though? But did he? Because we never actually heard him make the speech.
He admitted it. Said he did.
But did he?
He said it. He said he did. He said it was in jest. It wasn't meant in that manner. And
I believe him.
I feel Damon is very calculating. And this is why Hightower hates him so much. It's not about the instability. Unstable men make kingdoms. You need them. Right. Ron of the Blackwater said, for every rich guy there's if you go back in their history, there's a bastard just like me that took the fortune from someone else. So these men they're not that far removed from being savages themselves. So you have to respect that aspect of his game. What you don't like is the fact that he's smart. And you know he's smart because when Viserys calls him into the throne room and he's sitting on his throne. First of all, Viserys is so stupid, he cut himself on the same throne he sits on all the time, right? Big dummy. But so you can tell you're not fit to be a king at all, right?
He's very delicate.
And most kings aren't fit to be kings. However, Daemon said one intricate thing. When he asked him why he should be here, to protect you. Why do I need protection? Because you're a fool. They don't respect you. They think you're stupid. And I need to protect you. I believe he was being very genuine in that.
I do too.
I believe he still loves his brother, whether he wants the crown or not. I don't know if he really wants the crown or not. We'll see. But I think in that moment, he was being very genuine. These people do not respect you. And they're coming for you. And they want to set themselves up. And we see that in the very next scene where Hightower walks into his daughter's room and pimps her out. And says, you better go get dressed. Wash.
Put on one of your mother's dresses.
Like there's still blood on the bed. And you're sending her over to go get down with the get down. Like this is the society we're in. We have to remember this, people. This is the society we're in. This man, that's his daughter. He's the richest man in Westeros. First thing that comes to mind is go smash him off.
And the thing is, and I get it. Like I know I read some of the comments in the in some of in the group or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know that
they went wild today, didn't they?
Like, oh yeah, they went off. I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah.
But they compared him to a pimp, and they was like, I can't believe he did his daughter like that. But
why not?
You gotta think, it makes so much sense because the next best thing if you can't be king, then be the father of one.
What's the name of the books, people? The Game of Thrones.
Of Thrones. If you can't be queen, then be the mother of one. Because then you have someone who, out of respect and honor, will listen to you. Unless they're Joffrey, but that's another story.
And if you can't be king, be the hand, which is what Hightower is. Which is who Hightower is. He understands. He knows who he's the assistant pimp to. He understands.
You brought up the smirk that he had. Honestly, my first thought when I saw that smirk was with the one decision to make his daughter his heir, it set Hightower up. It set him up it was the next domino he needed to fall in whatever plan he's got going on. Because he can't go against Daemon because Daemon's ruthless. Daemon's will put him on the front table.
I think he'll go against him. I disagree. I disagree with that.
You may be right.
Physically, of course not. And because he's the king. I don't think he's fearful. I don't think it's because he's going at him. Like he came straight at him the entire time. There was no cut cards with him. Like if you go back and watch, he came at Daemon's neck in front of him. That part of the game I respect, but it's also calculated. So you know what you're doing. You're disparaging the man. you're tearing him down to his face, and then behind closed doors, you're even worse. When Damon was was eavesdropping on the council having the meeting on getting rid of him, where Corlys, speaks up for him initially, and then speaks up for his wife, obviously. But he's come at him. I don't think he's afraid of him at all. I think he's making moves. I think he's cold and calculating, and he's creating wedges between people so he can ultimately get what he wants.
That's my point.
I don't think he's scared of anybody in the situation, honestly. That's
my point.
His money, overpowers everybody. I got more money than everybody.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah. I don't think he's afraid of him, but I think he's very aware of the fact that he can't beat him.
No, he can't beat him. Damn it.
He can't beat him. It'll turn physical.
He can't beat Rhaenyra.
No, but he doesn't know that yet.
Right.
Because all he sees is a woman, and not just a woman, but a young one.
Well, wouldn't a Targaryen, let's think about this for a second, right? Hightower, in order to rule at this time, as we spoke of at the beginning of the podcast, part one, even though this is a rudimentary society, it's still centered around dragons. Yes. So for you to take over the kingdom, you have to have a Targaryen that you control. Viserys, for a man like Hightower, I would assume, Lady Tiesha, this is just me.
I'm listening.
You would want a weak man on the throne so that you can manipulate him. Yes. So you wouldn't want Daemon on the throne because Daemon would get rid of you immediately because he would see your game.
He would pick up on your game.
Right. So you would want Viserys to stay on the throne, and you would want to control him by any means necessary, which would have been between your daughter's thighs. But if you can't get that, which you're still probably going to try to get, to have a female, as you would see, as a man of his stature in that time, to have a female as the queen, that's fine. I'll marry her off because her king would eventually displace her.
Well, that, and unless, and he, like you said, Viserys is weak. He is a fool. And and to me, his biggest mistake would be to show his emotions. And yes, he's grieving. I know he lost his wife and his son, but he showed those emotions. And
throughout the whole show. He was weak throughout the whole show, right? Like he would, like when he would get upset during the council meetings, and when he would get mad at different people, like he showed his hand the whole time. He never gave a kingly vibe other than I'm holding the sword and I'm sitting on the throne.
I'm going to be honest with you. I even, it kind of threw me a little bit, in a good way. But when his first scene, he's telling a bad joke, and everyone around the table is laughing like he's, the greatest comedian in the kingdom. So I think that is definitely the air that they gave to him. Like you said, he keeps cutting himself. He's got a sword on his back. You don't even know where he got it from. Yeah. So he's painted this picture, and I feel like he's gullible.
Absolutely.
He's gullible. And to me, that was I kind of picked up on that with. I mean, it's obvious, but it kind of confirmed that thought with me because you can mistake in the character's traits.
Right.
As the story goes on, you're proven wrong that what your first initial thought was isn't true. But with him, it kind of confirmed the fact that he's gullible when all it took was, I'm sorry for what happened to you. Like that. Like, I relate to you and I'm sorry. And he almost like cracked. Like the tears were right. I could see him. I'm like, he's gonna cry. He better not cry.
Yeah.
So And that's all it took. Like I have no question that Alicent is gonna. She's in.
Yeah, she's in there because he got to get himself some. Yeah, he got to get some, and that led to. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. Usually I would be like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna get it." No, I think she's gonna get it.
I think it's gonna
she's
be
not
messy.
Gonna give it up.
I think it's gonna be messy either way. I think both of them are weak. And, you could definitely see the weakness in her. Her father dominates every aspect of her life Allison. They're a match made in hell. But
You see her nails?
yeah, yeah,
You get a glimpse of that? I was like,
yeah.
she's eating her hands.
She's a child. They're still children, and because even though this is a medieval time, because they're of wealth, they're allowed to enter their adolescence like normal.
Yeah.
You know, if they were in regular town folk, they would have been married off and probably had grandkids at this point in their
Yeah.
story. So,
Yeah.
so she's kept weak on purpose, I think, so she can be controlled.
Yeah, I mean, when I seen her, I was like, "Oh, baby girl got anxiety issues."
She did,
She
and
does. Poor thing.
yeah, and we're going to see more on that. I mean, they definitely set that up for further down the road. And then when we saw
Yeah.
some of the scenes that are going to be from the upcoming season, it just let us know that all of these characters are going to play integral roles, but
Yeah.
there's also going to be some shoring up of some of the storylines from Game of Thrones. They spoke of Azor Ahai, the prince who was promised, and I mean the Song of Ice and Fire. They've referenced this, so we know that this story is going to directly relate to Game of Thrones, and then
Yes.
that story will hopefully roll into the new sequel, Snow, if that's still the working title. I like Return of the King, but that's just me. I think it's gonna be a triangle that brings all of the stories together, and they're gonna have like 3 or 4 more Game of Thrones, one being a cartoon. So all of these worlds are gonna somehow be linked idealistically in George's mind.
Yeah. 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 Very, very, very well thought out.
Now, how do you
Um,
feel about the prostitute?
I feel like her ship came in. I feel like she did her job. If you're gonna sell it to somebody that can afford to pay for it. You know, and I feel like she may be temporary. She may even be a plant because somebody in that room snitched about his speech. She could be the one. She could be a double agent. Who knows?
That's interesting that you say
Mhm.
that because, and they want you to think that because the facial expressions she makes, how he listens to her.
Mm-hmm.
Again, powerful men being influenced by ladies of the night.
And it kind of paints the picture like he's taking her off to be with him. He has a wife and some kids. So
She was on the
paints the
dragon.
picture like he's taking her off to be with him. But I still had the question of he's no dummy. He's no dummy. He probably knows where the king found out. But he also knows every person that was in that room.
He wanted the
who
king to
wasn't.
find out. He wanted the king to find out. He knew what he was doing. He's not a
Somebody in
fool.
that room,
Yeah.
and he knows this. Somebody that's loyal to him isn't really loyal to him. And
Or he planted the information. Or he wanted that information to go to Hightower so Hightower can make his move, and he knew what his move was.
Mhm.
Damon's not a fool, people. He's not
That
a
is
fool.
chess.
He planted that information. He's not a dummy. The entire episode, you saw him make very calculated moves. And now all of a sudden, this very calculated, thoughtful, thinking man is now going to be so careless as to say something that he knows.
We'll get back.
Not just get back, not just raise the ire, but will force the king to have to do something for image purposes, saving face. So now I am forced to not name you the heir and to name Rhaenyra the heir.
Mm-hmm.
So Daemon wants this for some reason or the other. And that's going to become clear later on down the line. But you can't, every scrap of information we've been given about this man, would he really be that careless? Would he make a speech that in a brothel full of people who you pay to have what, sweaty sex with.
Yeah.
You really think that he's going to make that statement in the middle of a brothel where everyone is for sale?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can
Yeah.
see if this happened in a
Yeah.
meeting or in a barracks. It was in a brothel. Yeah, I know it's going to get back. I'm waiting for it to get back to you. I wanted to get back to you so that my moves can come to fruition and I can see
See, I
what
didn't
you
look
want
at
to do.
it that way. I did not look at it that way, and it makes
The man is
perfect sense.
slick. The man is
It's
slick. What we're
strategy.
seeing the game being set up. We don't know who these characters will be. Yes, they're presenting them, and we think one might be Jamie, one might be Tyrone, but they may be someone else. And and to get all of this in one episode is freaking amazing. To get
Yeah.
to get everything we saw and all of this plot set up, that we can have this conversation, and there's so many conversations that can be had, and this can go on for hours and hours and hours, right? But I think we're seeing the beginning of a great dynasty again. And when he jumps on that terrible CGI dragon at the end, and his prostitute goes with him, she gives me Melisandre vibes right there, like she's a sorceress or there's something else to her. But now that you said what you said, then maybe
She gives me Shay vibes. She's trying to sleep her way to the top. She wants out of this hellhole, and he seems to frequent this place, and he seems to have an interest in me. So I'm gonna shoot my shot.
Well, he wouldn't frequent it though, because he hasn't been there for a while. Right. And I guess we're going to figure this out down the line. But you see,
That's true. He was just coming back. But the thing is, for as much as he's in town, that's the place he goes.
And it wasn't like it was good because he couldn't finish. Sorry for being crass.
He couldn't, and he wasn't even concentrating. I feel like he was listening more to what was going on outside than he was present.
Or he was deciding, was it time to pull the trigger? And when she went and talked to him and gave him that reassurance, that's when he was like, all right, it's time to do some damage. Let's go ahead. Everything has happened. Everything happened. And now it's time for me to set my place. Now, the sad part is, I think Viserys made a mistake. He should have allowed him to stay there.
Yeah.
He should have allowed him to stay there and protect him. Yeah.
He should have heard him out.
But he was too weak. And like he said, he was too weak to make that decision. Like, you were strong. You got tough with your own brother, but you couldn't be tough with the Otto Hightower who's disrespecting you openly and mocking you openly. See, these are the small details we got to pay attention to for you people, because we love you. We love you as listeners, and we'll agonize. Like, you have no idea how much agony it is for us to watch an episode, because we're watching, but we're also writing down, we're taking notes, and then we miss something, then we got to return, then we got to rewind,
return it back,
and then we miss the feeling of it, so we got to rewind a little more. So it might take us 2 to 3 hours to watch an episode, just so we can break some of these very small, minute details down.
And two things. One, I didn't have this much to say about Game of Thrones until like 5 seasons in.
Yeah.
But this is the first episode, and the thing is, it is agony. Like, I don't know if other streaming networks have spoiled me with the entire season coming out.
Getting the binge watch. Well, they're going against all of that though, but everyone's stopping that. Disney Plus has stopped it. HBO Max has stopped. Everyone's stopping it now. So everyone, even Amazon, they don't give you the whole season anymore. They want to keep you coming back, and so I like it too. I mean, it's torture. It's torture.
It is. That's the part that I miss. That's that part. To me, it's like going to get a tattoo. I kind of feel alive. This torture makes me feel alive a little bit, because I have to wait. I have to wait.
But it's okay. It's okay. That's what we waited 3 years, people. We waited 3 years to get this, and we're here now, and we're in the midst of it. So we got to remember, we were patient for 3 years.
Yeah.
We can be patient for 6 days and 12 hours. So we can do that. We can do that. This was a great first episode. I liked it. The things I didn't like, besides the CGI, I think there's some small things. The CGI was the biggest thing I didn't like. I thought they could have done a little more with that. I'm glad they didn't give me a lot of interaction with the dragons. Build up to that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Everything was just enough. And other than the CGI, and I'm still back and forth on the gore, if it was necessary or not. Only time will tell whether that was, because with that much stuff on the first episode, my worry is that we're going to go this way.
And then it's going to get flat. Yeah.
But I don't see it, but it could. When you start, you got to finish how you start. So if you're starting up here, you got to finish up here, which means the middle's got to be up here. So we got to do this. Right. So it can only get better. I'm sorry for hitting the microphone, people, if you heard that, but if it gets there, that I just wanted to keep going up and to keep rising. But from those scenes we saw, we're not going to get into those now. We've given you too much. We love you, but it's the next day here, and we still have to work for a living until you tell all your friends to download us. So yeah, this was an amazing first episode. I'm sure we can do this 10 times and find 10 different things, but I don't want to overdo it for the folks. I want to give them just enough. And then when we come back next week, because I feel we're just going to release this as a whole episode. I'll let them hear the whole thing. And because if we stretch it out, we'll be a week behind. So I want to release it now. We'll release it tomorrow. We're recording this Monday night, so we're going to release it for our Tuesday podcast. Next week, hopefully, I do apologize. We wanted to do this directly after the show and possibly release today. However, I was having some internet issues, and Lady Tiesha was so kind as to send a raven with $16 in quarters. And so every time I have an issue with my internet router, I pop a quarter in, and it works okay.
Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be hilarious. We're going to be having a giveaway at the end of the season. And so 2 of the things we're going to be giving away is this pop metallic Night King limited edition from AT&T. But it's going to be a little difficult putting it.
That's pretty dope.
Yep, look at that. And we're going to be giving that away, never opened. And I do have a limited edition. It was open, but it's a limited edition Hodor phone holder.
Hold the door.
He's holding the door, people. Now, if you're listening, obviously you can't see this, but if you pop over to the Southside Westeros YouTube channel, you can see both of our, Lady Tiesha's lovely face and it's a face. I don't know what happened to it, but it's weathered, people. Now, we also recently put up our Southside Westeros TikTok, where we're going to be doing little TikToks about the same subjects we're talking about, and maybe some things you didn't know, so some conspiracy theories and so forth. So check us out there. Of course, we have the Facebook and YouTube. Not YouTube, Facebook and Instagram, Southside Westeros, and we're even on Twitch. So hit us at any one of those mediums. Send me a message, southsidewesteros@gmail.com, and if it's for Lady Tiesha, I will forward them to her. We will drop her. Is her an okay pronoun? We got to stay.
Man, don't throw English at me at 12 o'clock at night.
Well, my pronoun is them. So call me. My pronoun is them. Just call, hey, him and them.
Yeah. Hey,
them. How you doing? Them. How you doing, them? Them and them.
Yeah.
So that's my pronoun. So you can definitely, we will forward them to her. And once her social media is ready, we will put it out on the world. So I do appreciate you taking the time out. I know it was a long day, and I thank you for meeting me this late at night. It is a new day. And we will be back again very shortly. We have several podcasts scheduled, and maybe, just maybe, the next one we do, we'll have 1 or 2 more people. So that will be like 17 hours, because all of us are going to be talking and loving Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon.
Love that I found this community. I promise you. Yes. I love it. Just to extensively talk Westeros. Then and now. I'm digging it.
All right. All right, folks. Well, we will see you next week. And we do appreciate you stopping through the South Side of Westeros. Thank you for listening to Southside Westeros. We look forward to you coming back and visiting us again. If you want to email us, you can reach us at southsidewesteros@gmail.com. You can also reach us at Southside Westeros at both Instagram, Facebook, and Twitch. We're SS Westeros at Cup of Coffee and Twitter. If you want to donate to the program to keep getting this great content, please donate to our Patreon or our Cash App. Both are Southside Westeros. Valodoharas. And may the Mother bring 7 blessings to you all.